We are now live. Well, how do you do? This is a an unexpected Thursday session at the Beer Whisperer Pub. We were going to close tonight, but we decided to just open for no other reason than it's still a free country as far as I'm aware. So, hey, I'm joined by Red Rooster, and so what's your beer of choice tonight, Red?
Well, Tom, how you doing?
I'm okay, man.
All right. So the last time we decided to have a session, I went with a bourbon, a swill, and a beer. I never,
Yeah.
I never got to that beer. Well, I'm getting to that beer now. I have in my hand Freeze Ray Icebox from the Strange Ways Brewing Company of Richmond, Virginia. This is an Icebox, which is a double bock beer that is actually brought down to below freezing, and the water is removed and the beer is concentrated and it becomes a much richer, much stronger beer. So this one, like we said the last time, clocks in at about 10.24% alcohol by volume. It's a delicious beer, very, very malty, very rich, very hearty, perfect for this time of year. So that's what I'm drinking. What you got, Tom?
I'll show you. This is my Microfest glass I got a few years ago. I got one I just found over the weekend. It is from Main Street 4204 Brewery in Belleville, Illinois. Common Ride. I hadn't had anything from this brewery before. This is nice. I'm a fan of the steam beer. And this is a very nice version. It employs a nice amount of rye malt to really give it that nice kind of that rye bite, that little that little bit of rye spiciness.
Sounds good.
It is. And I think it's a style that kind of gets overlooked now because craft beer has just gone in such crazy directions that when you taste a beer that's actually stylistically perfect, everybody goes, that's a meh beer. So no, it's not. It's perfect within its style.
Yeah, I agree with you. This seems to be a current trend that everything has to be bigger and bolder or has to have 150 ingredients. But there's a lot to be said for brewers that just do a classic beer style and do it very well. I like those type of beers. Of course, I like all the crazy ones as well. But yeah, when you break it down for me, in the end, you just give me a very well made beer, and I'm very happy with that.
Yeah, I agree, and I like some of the crazy stuff too, to be honest with you. But sometimes you just want that classic style. Sometimes just a great dry stout is fine, and I don't need raisins and plums in it. So sometimes a nice imperial stout is fine, and I don't need cocoa nibs, chocolate, and peanut butter. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. Matter of fact, last night I had a couple beers and I had myself a Weinstefaner Dunkelweiss beer, and I like Weiss beer and Hefeweiss, and then I particularly like Dunkelweiss. And Weinstefaner does a very, very good one. And if you want a textbook example of what a dark German wheat beer should taste like, that's a good place to start because it's just excellent. So, classic beer styles, you can never go wrong with them, especially ones that are done correctly. And Weinstefaner, they do things correctly there. So,
Yeah, I
great.
agree. I've had that beer several. In fact, I think I've had everything they put out. But yeah, uh, for classic German styles, yeah, they're awesome. That's one reason I really like Urban Chestnut, an American craft brewery, because their brewer. I think he owns part of the brewery is German born, and so he really has that same sensibility doing classic German styles. And last year they even opened up a craft brewery in Bavaria, and I believe they were the first American brewery to do so.
That's very impressive. If you can open up a brewery in Bavaria, because the Bavarians are the beer drinkers of Germany. I mean, in a country that's, just soaked with beer drinkers. And if you're the beer drinkers of the beer drinkers, that's really saying something if a brewery from America can go in there and compete because the Bavarians definitely know their beer. That's for certain. And what I like about German beer and German beers, I've gone on record as saying German beers are probably my favorite beer styles. It'd be hard to say because I like so many, but I like the simplicity of them. They keep it simple. I mean, they brew with four ingredients, and they do the best they can with they've got within the beer purity law, the Reinheitsgebot, which is really, they updated that law in the 90s, and they can actually do a couple more things, but most brewers keep strict adherence to the Reinheitsgebot, and I think that's a good thing. I think people try to say it's stifling the creativity of German beer, but that saying, Tom, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. There's nothing wrong with having the type of beers that they're doing in Germany. Within the law, they can do a lot of different things. They're doing a lot of American, British, Belgian beer styles, but they're doing it within the purity law, and I think they're doing a very good job with it. So, hey, if you want to drink, super hoppy IPAs, well, that's what imports are for. I mean, they can drink American beers, they can drink British beers, they can drink Belgian beers. I mean, what's wrong with keeping German beers German beer? I mean, that's for me, what makes German beer is the fact that the Reinheitsgebot is in place. So.
Yeah, I agreed. I was going to ask you that question too. I've heard about them trying to repeal that, and I've heard that same argument that they can't compete with what the craft beer market is doing now. So, but you kind of answered that question for me.
Well, I think what happens is if they decide to throw it out, a little bit of their identity is going to be lost. They're going to just be like everybody else, I like lagers. I have always liked lagers, and there are ales within German beer culture as well. I mean, Kolsch is an ale. Hefeweizen is an ale. Alt beer is an ale. It's not like, there aren't any ales. Gose is an ale. Berliner Weissen. I'm not sure if that's an ale or not. I don't remember. I don't have the information.
I think so.
Yeah. So there are ales too. I mean, there are beers that were, grandfathered in and all that. So there's a lot of diversity in German beer culture. I mean, I've been all over Germany, and you go from one state in Germany to the other, and the beer culture is much different. I mean, Bavaria in Berlin, I mean, they're like night and day. They're two different beer cultures altogether. So, I say leave the things the way they are in Germany, but that's a decision that the German people need to make, not necessarily you or I. If the German people want to say, okay, let's throw this law out, then let the Germans make that decision. Don't get pressured by, the outside, people, who aren't German,
Yeah, I agree, and I agree with all your logic too. I think that is what makes them special.
I do as well. But speaking of someone who loves German beer, John Starodumsky, the brew guru, was supposed to join us, but of course, Google Hangouts, being the way it is, was giving him all sorts of trouble, and for whatever reason, he couldn't get on. He made a couple attempts, but I don't understand why they make it so difficult. But yeah, this is a common thing I've noticed with a lot of these Hangouts. There's always some kind of difficulty on somebody's end. So
there's always at least one person that has issues, and then the next time you get on, he's fine, but then somebody else has an issue. It's always something. But yeah, when I found out I was going to have both of you on at the same time, I wanted to talk about a craft beer Facebook page that you guys set up together.
Oh, okay. And yeah, we were going to talk about how Honest Craft Beer Reviews on Facebook came about.
You want to save that conversation when we can get both of you, or you want to talk about that now?
We could talk about it a little bit. Maybe the next time John comes back and we can expand on it a little. Basically, him and I were, members of a couple other Facebook groups, and we were kind of getting fed up with, seeing all these beer reviewers, the ones that are YouTube beer reviewers or had beer blogs and stuff, gloating about all this quote unquote free beer that they were getting from these breweries. And then you would look at the reviews and you would see that it was clear that any review that they were doing was very favorable to the brewery itself. And it isn't hard to figure out why. I mean, if the brewery is going to send you product for free, I'll ask you the question, Tom, and you can answer me. Why would a brewery send somebody a product for free to review? What are they doing that for?
Well, either they're looking for free advertising, or if it's not free, they're sending it to you, but they're looking for inexpensive advertising. They're looking for a favorable review.
That would be the logic, okay? But almost 99.999% of the time, when you tell someone that, it's like, okay, well, you got the product and you've given a favorable review, they'll always tell you, oh no, getting this beer for free didn't affect my opinion at all. So John and I decided to come up with an idea. We said, oh, okay, if that's the case, then why don't you write a check for whatever the beer cost? You know, you would gladly pay for it because you're saying you want the beer and, you know, you're going to be fair and honest and impartial. Write a check for whatever it costs the brewery to send you the beer and donate that money that you would have spent anyway to a charity in the brewery's name. That way, you know, you win because you get the beer. The brewery wins because it gets the review, and the charity wins because it receives money that you would have gladly spent on the beer anyway. Well, you know what happens with that, Tom. How many people will take us up on that and actually do that?
Well,
Yeah,
probably none, I'm guessing.
no, no takers. So what does that tell you? But
Yeah.
there is one taker though, and John has done this. He's had beer sent to him from Heineken or whatever, and he told them, "I'm going to give it a very honest review." He said, "Here's what I think, you know, the fair amount it cost you to send it to me, and what I would have paid for it in a retail market. And in your name, I'm sending this to the charity of my choice." And I don't remember which charity John sent it to, but he's cut the check and he's sent the money. So he remains honest and impartial because he isn't being influenced because he's paid for it in a
Mhm.
sense because and then the charities benefited from it. I think that was a good thing to do, but again, you don't get many takers on that, and that just tells me that these guys to get the beer sent to them for quote unquote free, they like getting it for free. Okay, they don't want to pay for beer when they can get it for nothing. And that's their whole thing is like, oh, well, wouldn't you take free beer? I'm like, well, no, necessarily. No, I wouldn't. I'm fortunate enough where, I've done pretty well where I make enough money where I really can afford to buy any beer I want at any time. Okay. If I really, really want a beer and I really want to fork out the money, guess what? I'll be able to get it. So I don't have a problem paying for beer. As a matter of fact, I would rather pay for it because when you pay for it, you're supporting your brewery. Okay, people that are just nothing, they're on the receiving end and they're getting a handout. Okay, that's not helping the brewer. The people that are actually helping the brewery are the people that are going out and spending their hard-earned dollars and supporting them with cash money that keeps the business open. Not somebody doing a blog or a YouTube video saying, well, this is a good beer. Go ahead and buy it, but I won't buy it myself. But you can buy it. I don't get that. Do you?
No, no, I don't get that at all. But yeah, so you started this group so everybody just kept their beer reviews honest,
Well, that's was
and
the
they weren't
point.
influenced. Their integrity wasn't questioned by getting free handouts.
No, not at all, because you could tell the brewery, hey, look, you sent me a sample of your beer. I went and I went out and I donated some money in your name. I got to be honest, this beer isn't very good, and here's why the reasons I don't think it's very good. And at least you don't have to, be like, oh, it's great, 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10. I give this an A, an A plus. It's like, come on.
Well, I mean, there are certain breweries that really do no bad beers. I mean, how much you like it is, from taste bud to taste bud, but they don't do anything bad. So when you get a beer from them, it's going to be a great beer. But when I see reviews for, questionable products that oh, this is an A plus beer, when it's, I mean, it's clearly not by any real beer reviewer standard. That kind of makes me wonder.
Yeah. Well, those people know who they are and they know why they're doing what they're doing. I mean, it's this whole phenomenon with people that just buy singles. I mean, they buy craft beer and they buy, singles of craft beer, and then the rest of the week they got a refrigerator full of natural light ice. So what's that tell you? It tells me that they really, one, don't really like craft beer that much, or two, they like it, but they really can't afford it. So they'll drink swill. And if you've got a refrigerator full of swill and you're just buying yourself singles of craft beer, um, it makes me wonder what the deal is. Do you like the taste and flavor of beer, or do you like the effects of it? Because if you're drinking swill the week and you're knocking that back and you're pouring that down your throat, that tells me that you're drinking that just to get drunk. You're not drinking it because you like the flavors of it.
Well,
I
I
mean,
know a lot of, I mean, I don't know personally, but I've talked to a lot of beer reviewers that buy mostly singles because they want to get through as many beers as humanly possible. I'm kind of the opposite. I rarely buy singles, and I only do it if I absolutely have to. The issue I've had with a lot of singles in my neck of the woods, and you can tell me if this applies to you, it seems like they sit on the shelf longer. And anytime I've gotten a bad beer, it was from a single and not a six pack.
yeah, that is true in a lot of cases, and also too. I mean, how accurate of a review is it going to be if you drink one 12-ounce sample, or one 8-ounce pour? Really,
I've had that. Yeah, I agree. I've had that discussion with a lot of folks. I mean, there are times there are folks out there with sharper taste buds than mine. I will admit that. But I mean, there are times I've noticed something on that third, fourth, fifth, and even sixth beer that I didn't on the first beer. So yeah, I
yeah.
mean, I like buying a six pack.
I do too, and don't get me wrong, I buy a fair amount of singles myself because I don't understand this whole ticker nonsense. That's some kind of jerk off beer geek term that came out a couple years ago. It's people that, just like you said, Tom, they're buying singles of everything because they want to get through as many as they can. I mean, I'm capable of doing that and still buying six packs of beers that I really, really enjoy. So I would never call myself a ticker, but I like to drink a lot of different ones. So when I go out and buy singles, I'll buy maybe a case of singles, but I'll also buy, six packs of something else. So, or 12 pack mix six or whatever. So it depends, but no, I'm all for trying as many different beers as you can. But if you're going to call yourself a beer reviewer and you want people to trust your opinion, I don't know how much I could trust your opinion if you've had this one beer once in your life, like 8 years ago. How am I gonna? How am I gonna? How's that useful to me now? You know what I mean? You tried it once 8 years ago, and you had one, 12-ounce sample of it. So that whole ticker nonsense doesn't do it for me. But I always like to make my own decisions anyway. I don't really take other people's opinion that much to heart. I pretty much, if I want to try something, I'm going to try it, even if it gets panned by a bunch of people.
Well, that leads me to another question I want to ask you. Now, there's a couple beer sites out there, Rate Beer and Beer Advocate, and I've talked to folks that won't try a beer unless they look up those websites first. And that logic seems incredibly bizarre to me. Why would you take anybody else's advice? I mean, I'm pretty lucky, I guess. I've got two good places to buy beer, and at both of them, I've got good beer guys who know me and know my taste. So whenever they get something new with, they'll say, "Hey, Tom, this is you need to try this, or this does this and this." But why do you need to look up at those sites to see if somebody else gave it a 90 or a 75?
That's a mystery to me as well. I mean, I guess they're looking for a consensus to see if, the majority of the people taste this beer. What do they think of it? But you're correct. Who gives a fuck what other people think of it? Make the decision on your own. Who
Well,
cares
probably.
what someone
Yep.
thinks? Beer Advocate and what's the other? Rate Beer. To me,
Yeah.
they're useless. I don't find it to be. The only thing I find helpful on both those sites is the places. If you want to check a place out
Yeah,
and
yeah, I have done that to find a place. Yeah,
to find
my
it.
problem Our problem with the reviews is I think you see a lot of monkey see, monkey do reviews. As soon as you see one or two positive, all of a sudden everybody loves it. You see one or two negative, everybody hates it. You know, there isn't a whole lot of differing opinion on just about anything.
Well, it's all subjective too, and a lot of it you'll look at it and you'll have 150, 200 reviews, and one review will say this and the other review will say that, and you don't even think they're talking about the same beer. So, I mean, I don't use those sites other than to find an address if I want to find a brewery and a brew pub,
Yeah.
and it has the link to the website and a phone number and address. That's really the only time I'll ever use Rate Beer, and that's what I use is Rate Beer. I find Beer Advocate totally useless. I don't like that one at all. I never have. I've never used it. I think I might have been on it. Maybe I could count on my fingertips the number of times I've visited Beer Advocate. So I don't put a lot of stock in those sites that were built on the content of its members. I mean, a lot of it's good. I mean, it's useful for some people if they want to learn about some things, but all that information is out there on the internet. You don't need to go to those sites. If you go visit a couple of brewery websites, or you go to a couple beer blogs, or like I said before, I'll keep saying this. If you read some beer books, especially Michael Jackson, you'll never need to visit any of them sites, and you'll be perfectly fine.
Well, yeah, if I'm looking for something and I see something new, I just look on the bottle. If the bottle doesn't give me enough information, I mean, it's not hard to look at the brewer's website. I don't know, because the brewer's website doesn't give you a review; it just gives you the specifics about the beer. So that's what I want. I just if it doesn't tell me what it is or the ABV or the IBUs, and I want to know that, I can look it up from them without getting somebody else's opinion. Because in the
Exactly.
end, I'm the only one that's going to know if I'm going to like it or not somebody else.
Yeah, and that's why I find most of these reviews absolutely useless because all I want to know is, okay, what's the style? What's it supposed to
Yeah.
be? Give me a little bit of the specs. Give me the ABV. Give me the IBUs. Give me the SRM. Let me see what it's supposed to be within a certain beer style, and then I'll taste it, and then I'll make the decision, and I'll base my opinions on my own experience, not with Joe Blow and whoever else tells me they think it is. For me to take stock into a beer review, I really have to trust that person's opinion. There are very few people that I do. Of course, your opinion matters to me. I've seen your stuff. I like your stuff. Of course, John, Chuck Triplett. There's a bunch of people that know what they're talking about. So if they tell me, hey, this beer is a dog, stay away from it, I would probably go with their opinion. I'll give you an example. Chuck told me about the 24 karat beer from Stone, the
Oh
one that's
yeah,
tastes like carrot cake. He told me it was undrinkable. Now I was going to pick it up, and it was $9 a bottle. And I usually like to try it because I love carrot cake. So I'm saying maybe I should get this anyway. But he told me, look, he said this thing was garbage. I'm like, oh, all right. So you know what? I said, let me just pass on it for now. And if it's still hanging around and I want to give it a try, I'm like, all right, maybe I will. But based on his opinion, that was a beer that I stayed away from because I know he knows what he's talking about, and his taste is similar to mine. So if he was telling me it's a dog, it's pretty much I could take it to the bank that it is. So I passed on it for now anyway.
So now that you've been drinking that one for a little bit and it's warmed on you a little bit, are there any other notes you want to talk about that ice box?
Well, more of the maltiness is really coming out, and it's got a little bit of chocolate like character to it. It's nutty, it's toasty, it's very malty. It's very round and very smooth and very polished. It's got a nice soothing burn. It's got that little bit of peppery alcohol, and
Mhm.
that alcohol in the malt is like lingering on my tongue after I drink it. So a double box, of course, are a very, very malt forward beer. I always tell people if you want to understand what malt smells and tastes like, get yourself a double box because this is what malt tastes like. And this is what malt
That's
smells
right.
like. Yeah. So it's a great beer. Yeah, Eisbach beer is a great beer style, especially for the winter. I said, this is a nice strong one, so I'm just sipping it slowly, and it's a perfect beer to have for a night like this, you know?
I looked for an ice box the last time I was at a store, and the two that they carry, they were out of on the shelf. So that was my plan to drink an ice box with you, but they didn't have one. Not long ago, I had a smoked Doppelbock from Urban Chestnut, and that thing was just amazing.
Nice. Yeah, I like Rauch beer. Rauch beer is one of my favorite styles. I went to Bamberg in Germany when I was in Germany, and I went to Schlenkele, which happened to be closed when I was there, but I knew it was going to be closed. So that was heartbreaking to be at the steps of that brewery, you know, at their restaurant in the downtown area, and not be able to go in. But there was another brewery right next door to it, and they actually had the Schlenkele on draft there, so I got to try it. And I tried it in another place when I was in Bamberg, but yeah, love Rauch beer. Where I stayed at this brewery called Fessler. They have actually rooms that you can stay above the brewery. So I
Oh,
actually
really?
so I actually stayed above the brewery. But
Wow.
across the street from Fessler was Spezial, which is another Rauch beer. They make an awesome Rauch beer called Spezial, and they also do a Keller beer, which I was drinking lots of that one as well. And I was drinking a lot of Dunkel and a lot of Helles. So yeah, I mean, Germany is just a wonderful, wonderful place to be if you like beer. For me, it's like beer heaven.
Well, it's funny. You talk to craft beer drinkers, and a lot of them will say they're not a fan of German styles. It seems like everything has to be Belgian something right now. Why do you think German styles get overlooked?
I think it's always the new drinkers are looking for everything's got to be, you know, hit you over the head with a sledgehammer. Everything's got to be big. It's got to be bold. It's got to be this. It's got to be that. It's got to be trendy. German beer isn't trendy. It's just it is what it is.
Yeah, I agree. So I think you're right though, because I think it's folks about our age that really appreciate the classic styles done right, especially when American craft brewery can compete or do a classic German style just as well as a German brewery. I mean, for me, that's just amazing.
Yeah, I agree with you, and that's the same goes for with British beer styles and Belgian beer styles.
Yeah,
Uh,
I
you
agree.
know, there's such range within styles itself. You can go have a particular style, and there can be a lot of range within the style. So, I mean, it all depends what you like, and I like it all. But yeah, people who look down on lagers, I don't think they understand. They don't understand what they're drinking, or they really haven't drank enough of them. Because if you drink enough German beers and you explore German beer culture, I don't know how you cannot like it. It's that good, you know.
I just think in many cases you got folks that think all lagers are the basic American beers that they've had all their life. They really haven't had the classic German styles done the right way, or they haven't had it from a good craft brewery that knows how to. That's what I think. I just think it goes back to not understanding the style or just not really trying the right ones.
Well, that's it. They're not trying them, and maybe it's because they've drank the cheap swill here, and that's turned them off. I mean, if you're drinking a beer like I don't know, Miller, Miller High Life or Budweiser, or all these other adjunct filled ones. I mean, I think we've had this conversation before. We know that these breweries are very technically sound. Okay, we know that they can consistently brew a product from whatever facility they're at, and it's going to taste the same wherever it is at the world, whatever end of the earth they're on. Okay, technologically that's an achievement. Okay, but for me it's a dubious one because okay, you're making this product that is consistently plain. All right, congratulations. Who cares that you can make a beer that tastes the same in Tokyo that it does in St. Louis? If it doesn't have any flavor, I mean, what's the point of it? And that's the thing. I think people that drink beer styles like that, they don't really care about beer. It's just something for them to have and enjoy. They're not looking for aromas and flavors. That's why the aromas and flavors are so light and so generic. but you know, if you want to drink a beer like that and you like a beer like that, that's fine. But when you start championing these beers and saying these beers for what they are is as good as any other beer style, it's just stupid. It's just the logic. That kind of logic is just it's moronic when you think about it. And you've
Well,
said
I
it a
mean,
million. You said it with your analogy. Okay, don't tell me don't tell me that sardine on a cracker is sushi. It's not the same. Okay,
yeah.
it's not. How can you give a beer like I don't know, Miller Lite an A, and give something as world class as, I don't know, Paulina Salvatore an A? They're not both A beers. I mean, some styles are just not good styles. They're a poor beer style. Adjunct lagers are a poor beer style, okay? Most of them, especially when you get into the swills like malt liquor, are using cheap ingredients. They're not using good ingredients. If you're using extracts and 6-row malt, and like I said, hop pellets or hop extract and corn syrup,
And
you know,
enzymes.
and enzymes, and they speed up the process so, the whole thing can be over in 20 days so they can, put it in a can and put it on the market for what, $3 a 6-pack or whatever they get for this garbage. You're going to tell me that's just as good as if I bought, a Sasson DuPont? I don't think so. I
Well,
understand the
yeah.
styles are different. I get the difference in styles. But when you have a poor quality beer versus one that is crafted, you can't tell me the poor quality beer in its own way is just as good as one that's crafted. No, it's not.
And I think that's the problem, Red. I think a lot of people think that when they have those beers, that that's what a real Pilsner tastes like when they say, I don't like lagers or I don't like Pilsners. Urban Chestnut, again, I mean, I know I brought this up before, but this is a craft brewery that does classic German styles. I guarantee if you're a real serious craft beer drinker, if you can go in there and have their Stammtisch Pilsner and not tell me that's a great beer regardless of style, I don't think you understand craft beer.
No. And I'll give you another example, Tom. If you've had the Shiner 107th birthday beer, it's a Pilsner
Mm,
this year. It's a beautiful, beautiful Pilsner.
really?
The,
No, I haven't
the
had that one
oh,
yet. Look
look
for it.
for it. The Pilsner malt is crisp and clean. It's in perfect balance with the noble hop varieties. They use Zaz hops, which is a classic Czech hop variety, and the Zaz is the star of the show here. It just sings. It's got perfect, that herbal, grassy
Hmm.
hop aroma. And I said you get that crisp, clean, slightly sweet, biscuity Pilsner malt, and you get that wonderful, like herbal, grassy hop
Hmm.
bite that lingers. This is probably, for me, the best beer Shiner has ever done. This is absolutely delicious beer.
Really? Wow, I'm
If
gonna
you,
look for it.
yeah, and if you like Pilsners, this is a very, very well done Pilsner.
Nice. So, Red, as we end this session, any last words?
No, not too much. I mean, other than the fact that your Beer Whisperer pub format again continues to get copied. But again, take it as a compliment, Tom. It's a
Well, we
formula
were
that's
the
really worked.
first, man.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we were the first. Well, yeah, we were actually. And if, like I said, we can go back to the archives and we can show people that we were doing this back in 2010, but we won't go there for now. But you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
This isn't our first rodeo with this type of thing. But
No, that's
no,
why we wanted to do this format. So it was kind of loose. We weren't fixating on a specific beer or a certain style. It was just like if we all happened to meet in a pub, what would we talk about? And that's what we wanted to do with this thing.
right. But next time, hopefully, John can come in and we can explain, basically why we set up the group the way we set it up. And it's really grown a lot. We were very small at first, but now we've got I think we have over 6,000 members. But we set up the admin panel with people that really knew what they were talking about, with really decades of experience with beer. I mean, we've got guys on our panel that have been drinking, beer since the 70s. So, that's a good thing. Because so people can learn from our experiences. And I think what's good about our group is that if someone does have questions and somebody wants to learn, there are people in the group that are more than willing to help them and point them in the right direction. I mean, this isn't rocket science. It's like you want to learn about it. All the information is there, but you might want to. What's good about our group is we might kind of put you on a fast path that, like, okay, here's where you really need to be looking for this good information if you really want to learn. And so I think it's been helpful, and these videos have been helpful. And when we do the panel discussions, which we don't do many of because it's very hard for us to all get together at the same time, being in different parts of the country. And a lot of us, have, work and all that kind of other stuff and, other responsibilities. It's hard to do. But when we do it, I think the whole point of those was to, really help educate people. And it's a fun way to learn about things. So I'm glad we're doing this. And I hope you continue with this format because it's a good one. And I like the guests that you have on. It's nice that you don't have me all the time. It's nice when you have some other people on. I know you're going to be talking about whiskey tomorrow with your friend John, and that's good because I'd like to learn a little bit more about whiskey, and I like other people's opinions on things. So that'll be good to tune into that one.
Yeah, that was again that's another reason why we started this format, because it just became too hard to organize to get 5 or 6 of us to do their discussion at one time. So I thought, well, I'm just gonna do this, off the cuff most of the time, and I'll invite people in. If you can join, that's fine, and if not, it's not a big thing. It was just kind of off the cuff, just as if we were all trying to go to a pub. Sometimes things happen. The wife won't let you go, or the kid's sick, and things happen. So sometimes 10 people plan on going, and 2 or 3 show up, and that's kind of why we did what we did here.
Oh, but I do have one question. Time wrap it up. Before we wrap it up, let me ask you a question, Tom.
Sure.
What do you like about honest craft beer reviews? And do you think that's a good idea to keep people honest? The whole thing about saying, hey, all right, if you're going to send me beer, I'm going to pay for it and I'm going to donate the money to a charity. Do you think that was a decent idea to try to do that? Or do you think people really can remain honest if they're getting, the manufacturer of a product sending them something and just saying, okay, I'm just sending this to you. They're going to want something in return. I mean, they don't send you product for nothing. So, I mean, I thought that was a pretty good idea to do that. That way, again, the brewery gets their review. You get a beer you probably wouldn't have been able to try anyway. And the charity benefits for the money you would have spent on the beer. So I think it's win-win-win.
I agree. I mean, I think it's a good idea. I've even turned down beer being sent to me. I mean, if I'm at the brewery, if I'm at the tap room, if I'm at a bar, heck, I enjoy the heck when somebody recognizes me or and buys me a beer. I think that's wonderful. But I don't think that's the same thing as sending a brewer an email and then have them send you something back. But to answer the first part of your question, what I like about the group, I think there was probably about 125 members when I first joined. But I remember hearing first, I remember seeing you and John and Chuck, and that was my earliest memories of the group. And I thought, man, I've been a couple other groups that I really liked because they were more like a pub. It was just a lot of conversation. But then my first thoughts about your group, Honest Craft Beer Reviews, was it had the most beer knowledge of any social media beer group I was in. It just had more knowledge than anywhere, because I learned a lot from Chuck and you and John right away that I did not know.
Yeah, and I've learned a lot myself. I mean, because we have guys that have been doing it for decades, and not just doing it. I mean, we have members that have traveled all over the world to try beer. I mean, there's one member we have. In 1 year, he visited over 600 breweries in a year. Okay. So you can benefit from experience with a guy like that, and that's what I'm trying to do. That was really the point, is to keep the reviews honest, but also to share these experiences and people hopefully can benefit from them and learn.
Yep, I agree. And I need to get that individual in the pub.
Oh yeah. Well, he's a great guy. He's the guy that gave me my Sam Adams triple box. So maybe we
Awesome.
can one of these days. Maybe if we're having one of our tastings, and we have tastings quite often. I'll see if he'll be willing to share a few words and share his wisdom because he's been doing it since the '60s.
Wow. Wow. That's incredible.
So, all right, Tom, good
All
session
right.
again.
Well, thanks, Red, for joining me. Hope. Sorry, John couldn't join us. He was having technical difficulties, but maybe next time. This time to Beer Whisperer, and we're closing the pub on Thursday, but I will be back tomorrow, opening the pub with John Sharon, and it's going to be a whiskey night. I think we're going to talk about bourbon specifically. So, hey, thanks everybody. We were, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.